everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I appreciate it, you being here. The Firewood Addicts podcast series. I think this is episode 7 or so. So far, so good. Check out the new logo as well. If you want stickers, let me know later on. But today we have our new friend, Brandon. Brandon, go say hi.
Hey.
All right. So I'm excited for this interview. Hopefully that it will be interesting for you all. Let's get into the intro. Brandon, what is your background?
Yeah, so I own and manage Whiskey River Art and Trading Company, and we sell hand tools and replacement wooden handles for mainly axes and sledgehammers and such, along with some vintage axes and things like that. So I make firewood myself. I was like, wow, I don't really talk about the firewood side of what we do here. So I'm like, we should get on a podcast to talk about this. So we do supply a lot of firewood producers and even small time guys who just do a face cord or a cord a year in their backyard and hand split it. So it's just nice to talk about firewood. We all enjoy this kind of conversation.
Yeah, man, rock and roll. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And whereabouts are you from right now? But in the States, or where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in northwestern Wisconsin in Iron River, which is about an hour east of Duluth, Minnesota. So just in the upper northwestern corner of the state.
And how is the weather there right now? Is it still cold?
Right now, it's beautiful right now. Yesterday was a little windy, but yeah, all the snow's melting. We didn't really get much snow this year, so we just got dumped on a little bit last week, but then it's all melting now. I think it'll be gone by the end of the day today. So yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Right on, right on. And how did you get into making axe handles and with your company?
Yeah, so I grew up with a father who was a timber frame carpenter, restoring like 1800s buildings, and which is a lot of hand tools are involved in that. As a child, you can't really like help too much, but you can go and get tools. So I learned a lot about tools and what tools do what and all of that. And as I became an adult, I was like into them, right? It's like a hobby, collecting them and restoring them and such. And eventually it became a thing where I was looking for axe handles to buy on the internet, and everything that I was buying either had a long delay in shipping or just showed up and wasn't that great a quality. So we started figuring out a way to make our own, and then people liked them, and next thing you know, we're selling thousands of them. So that's kind of the trajectory of the axe handle thing. It's not something I ever thought I would be doing for a living, but here we are.
It is cool to fall into a career that is organic or kind of like a happenstance,
Right, it feels right.
It does, right? Because then you share like a passion for it, so it's not really like the saying goes, it's not really work because you love what you do, type thing. Yeah,
Definitely.
very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Where are you shipping your products? Is it only within the U.S. or is it international?
Yeah, it's the U.S. and Canada. We used to ship before COVID. We used to ship all over the world, but with COVID and the customs restrictions and things, we just ran into a bunch of headaches. So we only do Canada and the U.S. now, and we ship all over the U.S. So most of the stuff that we sell goes to the coasts and to Texas. So that's kind of like our main demographic. But yeah, all over the country.
Very cool. What is your most popular product that you sell currently?
Oh, as far as handles go, I would say it's our 30C. That's our like flagship handle. It's 30 inches. Well, it's actually 31 inches overall, but it's a curved axe handle. It's designed off of a historically correct pattern that I found that's from the late 1800s. It's a cast steel pattern that is able to fit into our machine. And yeah, so that is probably our flagship handle. That was the first one that we did. That was like a heritage handle, we call them. And people have really fallen in love with them. A 30-inch handle is great for anybody who's got any height, like any range of height. 30 inches is kind of like a sweet spot for felling or splitting or whatever. So yeah, that's probably our most popular one.
Right on. So then you're actually taking like raw wood and forming it or cutting it and to sand it down. What I have no clue about how to make
I know
it.
It's done on a
so you're taking
lathe.
So yeah, okay. So you're taking like logs or whatever and making them, like you're not having to import already formed handles and then making them your own, like you're making them from scratch.
Yeah, so we contract with a mill that makes the handles. We partner with them. They're in Ohio. That's where hickory is. More hickory is than here in Wisconsin. Our forests are full of red oak and ash here, but most of the ash is dead because that's how ash is. So we don't have any locally sourced out of Wisconsin lumber that we use, but yeah, we get it in lumber form. It air dries for 2 years, and then we make it into axe handles on a copy lathe. It's a lot of people who are familiar with copy lathes are familiar with them because of gun stocks. That's how they make gun stocks. So it's you have a pattern, and then you have 3 spindles underneath, and it turns, and it replicates the original pattern and makes the exact form that you need. And then you sand them down, and then they ship those from Ohio to us, and then we sell them on the internet.
So with the lathes, is it all automated, or is there someone with a carving knife there
Oh yeah, no,
doing it?
there's like so there's these spinning wheels. They have cups on them. It's a cutter head, and those sharpened cups. There's 4 on a wheel. They spin around, and they are your chisel, right? So they're chiseling, and then they're on the pattern. There's a guide wheel that's shaped the same, and as the pattern turns, it is grinding away at the boards and then at the end, once it's cycled through, it is the shape of an axe handle at the end. So yeah, there's someone there watching the machine run, but there's not anyone actually touching any tools in it. So yeah, it's a 1960s technology. It's a 1960s machine.
So older but so modern.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to make it any more modern. They do make CNC ones, but they're really, really, really expensive. Where you have a computer file. Those are made for furniture legs, and people that are going to make like 10,000 of one piece, coffee table legs, things like that. So they make that. You just draw it in the computer, and then it just makes it, and then sands it and everything. So, but we don't have one of those because those are really fancy. So
yeah, sounds like it. So then, and then you have, after it's formed, is there someone with like then they're having to hand sand it, or is that all automated too?
Yeah, so well, we're in a transition period right now where we have a lathe that's being onboarded that has a sanding head that follows the cutting wheels. But up until this point, there's been this big slack sander. It's got an 8-foot long belt, and it's 6 inches wide, 5 inches wide, and it's got slack to it where it can kind of move a little bit and conform to the handle, and someone stands next to it and slides the handle and rotates the handle, and it sands all of the marks from the lathe out of the handle. But yeah, so every handle that we've sold up to this point since 2017 has been hand sanded. Yeah. It's a great question. I don't think I've ever shared that. It's, most people just think a robot makes the whole thing, and just like everything else nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense in terms of have it be efficient for lathe to do it with your system, with all the carving knives or the cups at a certain point to form the handle. But at a certain point, a human is involved to make sure that it's a quality product.
Right,
that
exactly.
a robot or a computer may not be able to do. Type thing, to have it be inspected for cracks and all that stuff. I'm sure you get a lot of stuff that's not at that level that you would like to sell.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You get like when you get into a piece of wood and it looks like a clear piece of wood with no knots and nothing, and then you get it open and there's like a knot in it. That happens with axe handles too. We have a board, it looks beautiful, the grain's perfect, and then you turn it and it's got a knot or a hole or a wormhole or something in it, and then that handle has to get scrapped. So yeah, it's very important to have that like human aspect of making axe handles, because a robot can't or a computer can't inspect them.
Yeah. And then so I'm curious, the handles that don't meet your standards of quality, are they just thrown in the fire, or are there like a second tier level that could be sold, but just like a warning, like this is not,
Yeah. So we have we really focus on premium axe handles, like making sure that the stuff that folks are getting are top notch. Back in the day, there was a like 100 years ago, there was a series of tiers, quality tiers, and there was like AAA plus, AA plus, and it went all the way down to like D grade. So we don't do that. We just have an A grade, which is something that's like there is nothing wrong with it. The grains, the grain orientation's how it should be, and there's just minimal run out, no knots, no cracks. And then we offer a B grade, which is a little bit cheaper. It's about 20% cheaper. And then that sometimes has grain, grain characteristics that don't make it perfect, but it's still a great usable handle. But those also don't have knots and cracks. And then we have a big bin at the warehouse that we have full of ones that were rejects, stuff cracks or has a knot, and locals can come and buy it, because the only way I feel comfortable selling it is if someone is there touching it, being able to make the decision themselves to buy it. So we've got a bunch of local guys who, I wouldn't say a bunch. We've got a handful of local guys that when they're restoring an axe, they stop in and dig through the bin and are able to, yeah. So, and then the factory, the mill on that end, they throw away anything and burn anything that is like really, really, really bad. We don't even see that. Some guy comes and buys them in little chunks and makes smoking wood, like charcoal.
Okay.
So yeah, that's like a product of the axe handles, is like a piece of charcoal. So
Right on. And I'm
there's
sure
no
that
waste.
yeah, so any waste per se would be not like thrown away or given away for free. Like, I'm sure that there's you either they burn it or you bring it to your shop and burn it in your there or in your own house. It'll be used somehow.
Yeah,
Any
yeah,
scrap
definitely.
pieces, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Very cool.
cutoffs from the board, those are all sent to that guy who makes charcoal. And then if I have a handle here that cracks, or maybe like it was on the edge of the pallet when it got shipped and a forklift bumped it, I just cut it in half and then throw it in my indoor wood stove, and we do it that way. I burned them in our outdoor boiler a little bit. We have an outdoor wood boiler at the house. I burned them in that, but I try not to do that because it's just they make way more heat inside of the house in the wood stove. So yeah.
Gotcha. I interesting. This is very, very cool.
Yeah.
I think I'm sure we'll circle back to what you do throughout this conversation, but I wanted to ask before I forget, do you have like a brick and mortar shop then, or just where you make them, but there's no store per se that you have set up? Is it
Yeah,
all
we don't have
online?
yeah, it's all online, 100% online. We have a downtown store, or a downtown storefront. We bought an old hardware store a couple years ago, and we're slowly fixing it up. And as much as I want to own a store here, we're in a pretty small town, just a few hundred people, and I can't afford to pay someone to sit and wait for nobody to walk in the door. So maybe we'll do like an open house twice a year, or a maybe like we have Blueberry Festival here in town. It's like a busy weekend for tourists and stuff. Maybe we'll be open for that. But yeah, no brick and mortar, just online on whiskeyrivertrading.com, and that's how we sell everything. It's easier that way.
Very cool. We'll definitely we'll have your site linked in this episode. I wanted to ask, um, so do you remember being in your region? Firewood is a bigger thing in terms of it being usually cold there. Did you burn when you were younger too, or with the chainsaw or axe, or have you split your own wood when you're younger?
Yeah, we didn't have a wood stove in our house when I was younger, but my grandparents did, and I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. They've got a cast potbelly stove in their living room, and they split all their wood. So we spent the weekends at my grandparents' house, processing wood, moving wood, felling trees, cleaning up stuff, and then yeah, my father, a lot of my father's work with being a timber framer was like using an axe. So there was always an axe around and hand tools around. So that's kind of what got me into the axe thing. And then I guess as an adult, I always had an axe or multiple axes, I guess, to split firewood for just the backyard, have buddies over and campfires and such. I like cooking over a campfire, so that's like super fun. So that's kind of the history of that.
Gotcha. And then in that time, either as a youngster or as an adult or in the midst of you forming your company, when did you know that you were obsessed or addicted to everything that is firewood?
Yeah, it's actually been kind of a more recent thing. When we relocated here from southern Wisconsin in 2022, my family and I, and the company as well. And I had this mission to, we have trees available. And I was like, you know what? I want to be 100% on wood heat by this winter. So I gave myself a full winter to do it. And so that's been great. And I found myself last year, every day in the summer, as soon as I get home from work, being like, I want to split wood. So I hand split 3 cords last year, just after work, just 10, 15, 20 minutes, sometimes an hour, if a buddy wanted to stop over and hang out, we'd split wood. But that was that's kind of when I was like, man, I really like this. I'm looking forward to this while I'm at work all day. I'm like, I want to get out in the woods and split. So yeah, it's a recent
I'm
thing.
sure that, yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just a recent thing, the addiction of splitting firewood. It's interesting because I didn't really know that mindset per se until, and I don't know if it's like a pressure of being like winter is coming and I need to get ready, so I need to focus on spending time every day to get ready, or if it was an enjoyment thing. It's probably a little bit of both, but yeah, I would say last summer was really when it hit me for like, wow, I just want to split wood, find all the ways to be able to split firewood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that as you're working, there's like a handle that may be different, or you're trying to prototype something that's different, unique, or like an axe head that is an old style something, or like a Smith, when you try something out that you want to really try it yourself,
Yeah,
and you want to get
definitely.
home and use that and get tested out, right?
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure.
we we pride ourselves on not selling any product that we don't use ourselves. There's a handful of us that work here, and there's products here that I don't personally use, but someone else here uses and loves. So we make sure that we test it. We're not just a company that's just like a catalog company that's just buying up stuff. They don't actually know what the product is, how the product is used, or what it does. So yeah, there's plenty of times where like I come out with a new handle design, or I come out with there's a new product from maybe a supplier that I'm like, well, I want to run this through its paces before I start selling them. So yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely, I want to say, I want to get more into using an axe to split, and I have a few episodes of me hand splitting, and I want to say it's some sort of like therapy. Not that like you're angry and you want to like hit something or kill
hmm
something with your axe, just
Yeah.
like the use of your hands on a handle, and then you're splitting wood. And I think I mentioned this in previous the podcast, that it's different from a pile of wood that you hand split versus a pile of wood that you split with a processor or a
hmm
splitter.
hmm
Different type of like, well, I did that myself with my hands, and this
Yeah,
awesome
definitely.
axe that I procured or I made myself, versus
Yeah.
like I did this in X amount of time, but by way of like my gas splitter or
Yeah,
my
it
electric
kind of
splitter.
happened for me in a way. I mean, you still have to put effort in. Yeah, there's a bunch of science actually behind hand splitting and how it benefits humans, not only physically. Obviously, the physical part is like, you're working out. It's a workout. Like you're going to be winded. You're going to be a little sore after if you haven't done it in a while for a few days. But there's also a bunch of I guess mental help that you can get out of it, right? You can't focus on anything else. You can't be on your phone. You can't be like talking. I mean, you can chit chat with somebody, but you're not like having an important conversation. You have to kind of focus at the task at hand. So it's meditative in that way. And it gets the blood flowing, which is it's good for your brain. So
Mm-hmm.
and problem solving, honestly, there's kind of like a plan. You can't just like swing an axe at a piece of wood. It's like kind of like a technique, right? And you have to kind of be like, every piece of wood is different. You have to be like, oh, there's a knot here. This is how I'm going to split around this knot. And it has basic just it's not hard. It's just something that you can't do anything else while doing it. So huge benefits for that.
I
Yeah.
agree. Do you have any research or like articles that you've read
Yeah.
about that, what you're talking about?
Yeah, we've I can't cite them right now on this podcast, but we have sent them out in our email newsletter. For I could actually try to find those and send them to you. That'd be good to share with your followers and stuff. There's
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, there's like dopamine release, a bunch of different positive studies. I can't remember who did the study, but yeah, it's backed by medical professionals. And uh kind of came out, that was kind of like a thing that a lot of our customers really fell into during COVID, where it was like, well, you can't go to the gym because the gyms are closed. You can't, like, if you are, maybe you are someone who doesn't do like crazy manual labor, but like your job, you work in a warehouse and you move stuff around, but like you're laid off because of the pandemic, so you end up like needing to work out some way, and you want to go out in the woods because the woods is fun. And so there was a bunch of articles during that time that were like, hey, these are the benefits that I'm finding from splitting wood for 2 months, 6 months, things like that. So yeah, there's a bunch of positives that come along with it. Obviously, as a former agricultural mechanic myself, I really, really, really like the gas powered stuff and the processors. And I mean, who doesn't like watching processor videos on the internet?
Yeah.
But there's always a place for an axe in a log yard or wood lot. So
I agree with you. I thought about this of like the use of the word addicts or addiction or having it have like a negative connotation, and I think it does, but I think I've used the word obsessed with it when I'm talking about the podcast. But to be obsessed or addicted to firewood, I mean that's all you think about. Like previous guy on the channel, Chad, like he mentioned that he would be driving down the road and looking at trees that he drove by and would want to figure out how to get that in his truck or in his trailer to back in
yeah,
his yard.
yeah,
You're always thinking
yeah,
about it, type of thing. Where I feel that there, I mean, you can be addicted to a lot of things that are bad, that are negative. But I think that there's certain things that could be positive, and I think that firewood, all that, everything that is firewood, I think that could be mostly positive.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
if
would say
you're
so.
doing it and thinking about it, where like you are neglecting your health, your family, your job, that would obviously
Yeah,
be
yeah,
the
yeah,
negative side. But
yeah.
I would like to talk to like a PhD like researcher or student on doing research on this, match
hmm
with using an axe with dopamines and having that be healthy mentally and physically,
hmm
how that all would combine. I don't know, just an
yeah,
idea. So
yeah, yeah.
if you know anyone out there doing research for a PhD and needs some sort of like a topic, let us
Yeah,
know and we'll talk with you.
it sounds like a
Um,
good college paper, college student to
right?
put together. Yeah, yeah,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Um, One thing on the note of axes, I mean, I've only recently gotten into swinging an axe, and I'm definitely not a professional because I have not done it for very long, and I need to get better at it, which just means more time on on it, right? So,
hmm
but one thing I don't know, I was going to ask you this: is it a common thing with that flick at the end to
yeah,
have the wood? Is that a thing? Because I know that Buckingham Ray does that, and he tried
yeah,
to teach
definitely.
people, tried to teach a person via YouTube. But I want to confirm, is that like a common thing that to
Yeah,
do
it's
that flick?
super common.
I don't know
Yeah,
the story.
a
Yeah,
lot of,
go ahead.
I think a lot of old timers probably it was kind of like a thing they all knew, especially like 100 years ago. The technique of flicking, if anyone's not familiar that's listening, is like, the right as the axe hits the wood, you twist your handle just a little bit, and when that happens, it changes the momentum of the axe head down into the log and pops the piece of firewood off. It's super easy to learn how to do it with a double bit because you've got a lot of weight off of the back of a double bit, and it's a pendulum, it's got leverage to it. So if you are wanting to learn how the flick technique works, it's easier to kind of an entry level or enter into that with a double bit. Then a single bit, they all have weight off of the back on the pole on the back side of it, and that it's kind of a combination between the flick as well as loosening your grip. You never want to death grip an axe and hit the log. It's just like, first off, your hands are going to get tired, like super tired. I don't care how tough you are. If you swing an axe and just grab it as tight as you can, it's going to wear you out. So you have a combination of loosening your grip right as it hits, as well as twisting, and it works great. And obviously it doesn't work on all wood. Like you're going to have challenging pieces of wood, but yeah, especially where like you're at, where Buchan's at, you got straight grain, big pieces, like monster rounds that you're splitting. And that flick technique works great for those where you're working your way around the outside of the round and just chipping off the outside, and not just trying to go down the center. If you're trying to go down the center and flick, it's never going to work, So that's cool on TikTok. Yeah. It looks cool on TikTok to go down the center and have it bust apart, but like everything else is, if you're actually doing it in a realistic sense, you want to work your way around the outside and do that flick technique. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I need to start practicing that so I get better. When you're so is that the only I guess, I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to split a round by hand, but is there times that you have a monster piece and it's all knotty that you're using a maul too, or is that, or do you have a pile that is all straight grain that's going to be done by hand, and then a pile that's all knotty and nasty that's going to be?
Well, as of recently, I'm buying all pulp sticks off of a log truck. They're all 8 foot, 10 cords on a truck. And we get ash often, and it's mainly straight grained ash. The red oak that we get has got knots in it, pin knots, knots inside, twisted, and all of that. And the one advantage that I have is that I have this outdoor boiler. So it's like, if I'm working on a piece and I chip off a couple pieces and then I hit this crazy knot and I swing at it 20 times and it doesn't, just put it in the boiler pile. We need big pieces for that anyway. So that's kind of my cheat code, I always say. But you have, you can work around knots. It's never a one tool thing, with anything. It's like, you can't split firewood with a chainsaw. Like, you need another tool, right, to split it with. And so splitting mauls come in advantage to, it's just a monster tool. It's heavy. And then you've got splitting wedges that you can use to get through that stuff. One thing I like doing is I like using a longer handled axe, a heavy longer handled axe, and then having a shorter axe to bust up those, especially in the red oak. It's all stringy, like you get it apart, but it's still held together by that like stringy piece. You can go in there with a short handled sharp axe and like just slice through that and it pops it apart. So yeah, just like having 2 or 3 axes sitting there that are all kind of a little different really helps.
Gotcha. On the note, I'm curious because I'm obviously not an expert on axes. So I wanted to ask you, for a splitting maul, does that need to be like razor sharp or sharp enough, or can that be semi-dull just straight from the store? What's your preference?
Well, it depends on what store you're buying it at. A lot of the stores have, are ran by attorneys, and attorneys don't want you to have a sharp axe on the shelf at Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. So I would say that if you're going to go and buy like what I would consider a not quality axe from a big box store, yeah, you're going to want to sharpen it at least a little bit. Just take a hand file to it, or even if it's at that point, it's not that great of an axe, you could just take an angle grinder to it, sharpen it up, make it nice, or make it as sharp as you can. But it doesn't need to be able to shave with. And no splitting maul or splitting axe needs to do that. The most important part of a splitting axe is when you look at the top of it, you want to see a profile that's wide. A felling axe is narrow because it's like a knife, but the wider you get with the profile when you look down on it, the better, because it's easy to get an axe an inch or 2 into the wood and then get it stuck. That's like, we've all ran into that. when you start getting that bigger angle, it helps with popping that wood apart and all of that. So that's kind of what makes a splitting axe and a felling axe different. You can obviously split wood with a felling axe. I mean, it's an axe still, but yeah, the wider the profile, the better it works.
Gotcha. Awesome. This is fascinating. Just talking about axes, because definitely not something we talk about a lot, or I'm sure there's videos in channels on axes, but to get into like the basics and answer, I mean, the questions that we may have but don't have answers to. So thank you
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that. And you mentioned, so let's use this as a segue, Brandon. You mentioned your outdoor wood boiler. Is that heating your house and your shop or garage, or
Yeah.
what does that sound like?
Yeah, so that setup is so right now I'm in our warehouse building in my office, and this is in town. Outside of town is our house, and we have a workshop out there, like 4,000 square foot workshop. So that boiler heats that, and it's a little oversized for that building. That building is not insulated. It's a cement block building. It was actually an ice house at one point, and then they built onto it and made it into a hot rod shop back in the 70s. I don't know when they made it into that. So it doesn't have that great insulation. So we do use a lot of that heat in that. Eventually we'll hook it up to the house. It's not hooked up to the house right now, but yeah, it's the logboiler.com makes it. It's a top load, which is kind of unconventional. Most of them are swing door. I don't know if you have them out by you or not, the outdoor boilers, but it's like a swing door on the front, traditional, and it's like, I don't know, it can usually fit a quarter of a face cord you could fit into the bigger ones. And ours, if you stacked it in there like perfectly, you could probably get a full face cord into our unit, and it burns from anywhere between 24 and 48 hours on an average winter day. So the advantage to our unit, I don't know if you're familiar with it or if you've seen videos that we put out about it, but it has a 5 foot by 2 foot door. So, and you can forklift stuff into it. So you can put a giant log in there, a couple giant logs.
One of those ones, yeah. Okay, so I've seen clips of these where like people are putting like literally like whole logs,
Yeah,
or like
we
pieces
have
of
one of
like
those.
massive chunks. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. We
Um,
recently have published a bunch of videos on it and went viral on TikTok and on YouTube with showing videos of that. But we can dump a 5 foot by 2 foot log into that door and put a bunch of them in there.
I apologize. I'm new to your channel, and so I admit I have not seen anything yet. I need
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
But it may have been that. It might have been you that I saw with like a forklift or like a bucket, and you're tipping like this big log,
Yeah,
the side view into like a top loading boiler.
yeah. That's
And
probably
yeah,
ours.
that's nuts.
Yeah,
Well, very cool. Yeah, we don't have boilers here, from my understanding. It did not get that cold.
cool.
But I do see them on various channels. So I get the gist of it. It's definitely something that I'm new to. But with
They're pretty simple. It's just a big water tank. It heats the water,
yeah,
and then there's a circulation pump, and then on the other end you have a blower, or you pump it through your concrete, depending on how your building's set up. They're really simple, and yeah, they do use a lot of wood. I mean, like we burn, I don't know, last winter we burned 16 cords of wood through it,
wow.
which is a lot of wood. But you compare it to propane here. It's like we had last year, we had 3 weeks that we were below -20 for like 3 weeks pretty consistently. And it's like, if you're trying to pay for propane for that, we'd be looking at probably $9,000-10,000 in propane a winter, and
Wow.
two semi trucks of logs, is 2,200 bucks, and we burn it. So it's way cheaper, even though it does use a lot of wood to do it.
And like you said, it does not have to be perfect. Like it could be naughty and wonky and
Mm-hmm.
large. So you're not spending like a lot of time to split it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think again, I'm not an expert on boilers, but from what I understand, people they will throw in green, excuse me, they throw in green, they'll throw in like semi-seasoned, or they prefer seasoned wood so they don't build up with the creosote. What is your preference?
Yeah, so it really depends on the day. Like, right
Sure.
now we're in April, so it's and just 2 days ago we were in the teens overnight. So, I fill it in the morning and at night. I could just pack it full, but I fill it before I leave for work and I fill it after work. I don't like to overfill it. Just because it burns weird and whatever. But I find that if all I have is green, it's okay. If all I have is green wood, it's totally fine. It'll burn it. It's got a blower that blows air onto the fire. It's like it'll burn literally sopping wet, covered in ice wood. But yeah, you do have creosote buildup, which doesn't really affect the inside of it. It's not like it's going to burn your house down because it's in your yard,
Hmm.
So the seasoned wood I keep around for cold days that I want it to run like top efficiency as best as possible. I think of it as like race gas in your sports car, like if you that's only for certain days that you really need it. But the rest of the time you could burn whatever. We burn pallets, we burn slab wood that comes off of a local mill. And I don't care if it's pine or if it's whatever, just cut it to length, throw it in there. So I'm not too picky. We did just move here and we did just get the unit, so we don't have like a huge stockpile of seasoned wood. So I kind of like I'm stingy with the seasoned wood for days that are like, man, it's cold and it's gonna be cold. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah.
Right on. Interesting. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, with boilers, it's just a different animal.
Mhm.
To me.
A lot of folks have opinions about them. A lot of folks have said we've got over probably 70 million views on that boiler since November on social media, and so you get to see the comments and what people are like talking about with each other in the comments. And one of the big things is people mention like it's very inefficient, and I think that there's an efficiency rating that is marketed with propane or natural gas, or like, well, this is a high efficiency unit. And at the end of the day, like if you're in rural America or in Canada or Alaska or whatever, and you need to heat a large space that you can't afford to pay a spray foam company 100 grand to come spray foam your shop, like this is a great alternative. It takes 100 grand, buys a lot of wood, so and a lot of folks use them for greenhouses, which are not insulated. And a lot of folks use them for heating water elements inside of those, like ponds and such. So they're kind of a universal thing. You could heat the concrete. That's kind of popular around here for people who don't want to have to shovel their sidewalk or maybe the pad that they park their car on. They want it to melt off. You can run heated water through it, and you don't have to shovel that. So ends up keeping your cars nice, ends up keeping your your concrete nice and all of that. So there's lots of advantages to them. It's like, yes, you could just put a propane or a natural gas heater in, but you have a little bit more control over the market. You don't have to like pay whatever the propane guy decides he wants to charge you that week. And
Hmm.
so that's what I really like about it. So I have woods. I have 6 acres. We can pull there's plenty of dead trees we can pull out of there and burn. So I can float the market if propane was outrageously expensive
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
something.
But the actual unit of a boiler is quite expensive from what
Yeah.
from what I know about them, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So.
you can get an entry level one for 9-10 grand. And actually, if you have any mechanical ability, they are very, very simple. As long as the firebox isn't rotted out, you can buy used ones. I see used ones come up on Marketplace for $1,000, $2,000 that have been ran for, say someone buys a house and there's one there, but they really aren't interested in doing the firewood thing and the wood thing. They'll sell them and they just want to get whatever they get out of it. And so I see, 2, 3, 4-year-old ones for a couple grand, and that's a really good entry level. You're going to have a couple $1,000s into burying your pipe, your PEX into the ground, insulated pipe. But at the end of the day, then you're at like what, 5 grand to put in a boiler for your house. And like, I'm sorry, but I don't know. I don't know what most people's houses cost to heat off propane, but when we first moved here, it was outrageous. We easily spent $3,000 the first winter in just propane. It's like, it pays for itself very quickly for a boiler. As far as ours does, yeah, it's a pricier machine. I think it was 21.5 when we first bought it. They've went up in price now. But yeah, they've got a 10 to 12 year lifespan of the firebox. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it lasts.
Right on.
Yeah.
Very cool. So then you buy poles and you bring out wood from your woods
Mm-hmm.
to burn. Are you using any of that wood to sell by
Yeah,
chance?
so we have well, I'm bringing in aspen. We live in a tourist heavy area, and aspen burns with a good flame, for campfires and such. It dries easy, you can light it easy. Um so we haul in aspen off the log truck, and this is a new venture for us. We just started this year. I own a building. This building is on Main Street. It's right there, so it's like, well, you should have a firewood stand and sell bagged firewood. And so that's what we're getting into right now. We just split a whole semi truckload, 12 cords of aspen, and then we bagged it all, made like 1,400 bags of aspen. Yeah, and it's kind of like a thing that we work on in our free time. If we got a light day here at work, we just run out and bag or move stuff around. So we don't sell any of the wood that we're pulling off of our property, but I'm kind of starting with this aspen. I would like to eventually move into bulk sales with cordwood. But right now we're just focusing purely on the bags and figuring out the bag market. I feel like that's the most bang for your buck on the per cord, if you have the labor to do it. And we have the labor. So yeah, I've got a couple
And
ambitious high schoolers that love putting firewood in bags, apparently. So works
right
out.
on. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, yeah, the labor's cheap. So yeah, right on.
Mhm.
Um, what what how much volume does these bags hold, and how much are you putting into the bags?
As far as so the volume is we're doing 0.75 bags. I might
Hmm.
bump up to a 1 cubic foot bag. I was at Phil's Firewood and Land Management in Clear Lake, Wisconsin. He had an oopen house yesterday. I was down there, and he's doing 1 cubic foot. They're not that much bigger. I mean, if we made 1,400 out of a semi, 1,400 bags out of a semi, it might drop it down to 1,000. But like, you know, you it's figure out, I don't know, I'm going to test it out with these 0.75s because we have 1,400 of them on hand, but eventually I think we might bump up to the 1 just to be a more premium product for the area. I don't ever want someone to be like, wow, we didn't really get much firewood for that. It's like the more firewood the better in a bag. And then yeah, what was your other question? What do we have into them, or what was the
Yeah, I guess, I mean, there could be a difference of how much a bag can hold versus what you actually put in the bag.
Oh
So
yeah,
so
we're chalking them full,
right on.
Yeah, they're maxed
Gotcha.
out. Yeah, we're actually gonna be getting a Wolf Ridge bagging station here soon.
Okay.
But we were using sleds, like plastic sleds, as a liner. So you slide the bag over the top, flip it over, and put the wood in, pull your liner out, and then stick more pieces
A few
in, one or
more.
yeah,
Yep.
one or two. You're staring at a semi truckload of wood, so you pick whatever size that fits in the void and put it in and then tie it. So yeah, I don't want them to wiggle around or move or anything. So yeah, we cut them all to 18-inch, and then they get put in there, and um they're nice and full. That's my standard for the guys who are bagging right now, is like, we shouldn't be able to fit any more wood in this bag. I shouldn't be able to come up to the bag and be able to fit anything else in it. So
Right on. And then
yeah.
what are you selling the bags for?
We're gonna be doing $7. The local gas station sells at 7. We're gonna be selling through that local gas station as well, wholesaling them into them, and then they're gonna do it. So I'm gonna keep the same price as they are, at 7 out front, and then we'll do a bulk discount. If they buy 5 bag or 10 bags, they get it drops down to 5 per bag or something like that.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping to there's a lot of private campgrounds in the area, and I'm hoping to be able to offer like a Saturday delivery of bags every Saturday in the summer, because we're on this pike chain of lakes. There's a whole chain of lakes here, and there's cabins and campsites and campgrounds and such just outside of town. So I'm really, really, really heavily marketing towards the tourists and not so much the year round folks right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So even dabbling or starting in to selling your bags of firewood, I think you're quickly understanding that you can make more money with your lesser quantity versus selling in bulk. I think maybe to do both maybe in the future,
Yeah.
but you are
Yeah.
definitely seeing the advantage of selling bags versus boards,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. The and one thing that I have, it's the negative of having a company that's based on sales is like, some weeks we have big weeks, some weeks we have weeks that are just crazy, all hands on deck, and the next following week it's kind of a light week. And what do we do in that time when we have a light week? It's like that we have the opportunity to fill that time in. I worked in construction and in agriculture growing up or as a young adult, and it's like you always had that like side project that you went to when there was nothing else to do, greasing equipment or changing tires or doing something. So the firewood is quickly filling that void for our staff, especially in the winter when we can't be outside doing stuff as much.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to bring some wood inside the shop and bag it up. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Awesome. Uh, why 18 inches? I'm curious.
I don't know. It's just that's how it worked out. I try to there was some 16-inch stuff in there. It's just like that was my max we hired a guy with a processor to come and do it. And I was like, everything under 18, I didn't want it over that because it ends up sticking out of the top of the bag and it sucks to bag. So you end up, I don't know, it's between 16 and 18 really seems like it's easy to handle. And then you have enough space on the top of the bag to be able to cinch it shut instead of having a 22-inch long piece in a 22-inch bag and it's like it's in your way. So I've been that worked out at that like 16 to 18-inch length. Yeah.
Right on. Very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I
Let's
guess another point on that,
yeah.
it also makes, I feel like it makes, if I bought a firewood bag and there's like longer pieces in there, I'd be like, oh heck yeah, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more wood. So you end up getting a little bit more wood inside the bag volume wise because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a little bit longer versus packing it full of 16-inch pieces and you have like that like 6-inch gap on the top of the bag that's like empty.
That is interesting, and I agree with you. To have the customer who's buying either from you or from the local store, and they feel that they can feel the bag and they feel it's heavy, and they can tell right away, or if you know firewood enough that it's not at 16, a little longer, and that bag is just chock full, like you said. They feel that they're getting a good value
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
this unit. I guess that we're just accustomed to the standard length at 16. But obviously you can cut them however you want. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
my fear of that is to make sure, I mean, I guess yes, you're catering to campgrounds, but they're being
Yeah.
outside. It doesn't really matter how long it is, right?
Right.
But
Right.
if they're buying it, if they're kind of bougie or they don't have like a cord in their backyard or in the garage and they're cold, they may want to use your wood in their own home, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
guess to make sure that they actually kind of fit the pieces in their wood stove, I guess would be
Yeah.
my concern. But if you're catering to campgrounds, length really doesn't really matter. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
you've thought about that and have found a way that's niche
Yeah.
and to be in the mindset of a potential customer of having to look at it, having to feel it, and they feel that they may get a better
Yeah.
value versus whatever kiln dry stuff that is down the road that's going to be like the double the price and half the amount of wood perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing that's worth mentioning is we're only planning on selling bagged firewood in the warm months. I'm not trying to sell firewood for people to heat their houses because they need to stay warm at the moment, right? So we're purely marketing from April 15th so that's coming up until Labor Day. And then whatever we have left after Labor Day, we'll keep filling the stand until it sells out, and then that's it for the year. We don't need to we've got so many projects that happen in the winter. We just are planning on just the tourist season, which is Memorial Day through Labor Day. And then, maybe we'll sell deer corn or apples or something for after that. Cause that's pretty common in the area for hunters to bait with and all of that. So, yeah, so that's kind of transitioning into into a different market after once it starts getting into the cold months. But 18 inches, I guess, if I think about it, if we were any longer than that, it wouldn't work in an indoor stove. But 18 should be able to fit in most fireboxes. So yeah.
I agree. I agree with you that it should either this way or diagonal. I mean, you could figure it out to have make sure that it
Mm-hmm.
would fit. I get to saying that it's a not a common measurement to use, but it seems to work, and people have not complained that it yeah. Um, it's good to have a plan and the foresight of or have planned for you're only going to sell these bundles for X amount of months. After that, whatever you have on inventory, when that runs out, then that runs out until
And then the whole
season.
winter, yeah, and then the whole winter we spend prepping for the next summer. We can
Mhm.
start if we have like, oh man, we need the cash or we need the space. We could start earlier in the year. Especially this winter, we had a really mild winter, and there's folks camping because it's been, it gets down into the 30s at night, but it's on certain nights, but it's still nice during the day. So I feel like there's people up here in their campers and stuff earlier this year, so we could have been slinging firewood a little bit earlier in the year. So we can kind of play the market at the beginning of the year. We can play it, but as far as like November, December, January, February in northern Wisconsin, you're not selling. Nobody's sitting outside around a campfire and like enjoying themselves, and they're surely not buying bagged firewood. So yeah.
I would hope not. I mean, here that happens that they don't plan for or they at least for my people who buy my for my firewood stand, a lot of them can't afford a third of a cord or a full cord at a time or don't have the space to store it. And but they want to burn firewood in their home for heat. So in my for what I understand of my some of my clients, not all of them, they could rummage up $15 at a time,
Mhm.
buy a few bundles, and they'll keep them warm for a few nights.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
efficient. I mean, over time they spend more money on my wood than they would if they bought a cord from someone.
Right.
But that's all they have at the time. But
Right.
that's people who buy from me. But you know who you're trying to market to, and that's a good thing,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Definitely.
Not
I'm trying not to
overreach.
spread myself too thin. I find that as I research a lot of these firewood guys, they want to do bags, they want to do bundles, they want to do cordwood, they want to sell semi truckloads, they want to do smoking wood, they want to do sauna wood. It's just you get all different directions, and it's overwhelming. And honestly, it's a quick way to failure. I feel like for any business is spreading yourself too thin in all different directions. So it's we're just focusing on one little aspect of this firewood industry, which is
Hmm.
huge. Like people don't talk about how big the firewood industry is. Uh, I feel like the average person that thinks about firewood is they think of a log that gets split into little pieces and then sold. But really, it's like there's so many different angles that you could move into, and there's people that make all their money off of just smoking wood for cherry and maple and apple, and that's all they do. They don't do heating wood. So ours is bagged wood right now, and I'm excited to just figure that out. And then maybe if people ask, if we have customers say, "Hey, I want to buy a cord," then we can talk about that. But for now, it's just bags.
Sold. I like it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, in your let's segue. Do you know the price of a third of a cord in your area, hard or soft?
Yeah, hardwood. Well, I mean, we don't really have. There's certainly no one that's offering publicly softwood. I haven't seen much of that. As far as buying a cord that's already split and everything, you're looking at. Did you say a face cord?
Yeah.
Just a face cord. Okay, so a face cord locally of hardwood is between 90 and $100 delivered. There's more 90s than 100, but depending, once it's in the middle of the winter, it seems like everybody's at right around $100 for a face cord delivered. And then I'm buying off the truck. I'm buying cordwood loggers cords for $100 a loggers cord. It comes in, so um, that's kind of our price for logs and for split stuff.
Gotcha. Would you consider where you're located, is that a wood saturated area and or a firewood sellers, like there's a lot of people doing it, or is it kind of in between, or yeah?
Yeah, there's well, south of here, there's about 2 hours actually down by Phil's place where I was at. There's a lot of firewood producers down there. It's affordable to live. You know, it's agricultural, industrial agriculture is pretty heavy down there. So you've got land available that's cleared for log yards. And then, but you're close enough to northern Wisconsin that has the trucking, they can truck logs out of our tree heavy area that we're in. So there's a lot of trees here. There's a lot of guys who I think in the area that make, 10, 15 cords a year and sell it, and they help pay their property taxes, or it puts, it buys their kids school supplies, whatever their expenses are for the year. It's just like a side hustle thing. There's a lot of that, and a lot of those are marketing off of Facebook Marketplace and things. There are a couple larger firewood producers in our county here, we're kind of a third of the way through the county. So once you get towards Duluth, there's a couple more that are bigger, probably doing 200, 300, 400 cords a year, big piles, and they've got a processor that sits there and it doesn't move, and it's a straight up log yard. So I wouldn't say it's saturated, but there is definitely some competition, and anytime you're in an industry in which anybody can make it, like you're gonna have like, well, my uncle does this, like, well, my uncle sells firewood for $50 a face cord. It's like there's a lot of that around where you have just one guy who cuts down a bunch of trees and then sells it on Facebook. So which I support. I feel like the bagging part, maybe I'm speaking out of terms, and if any locals are listening to it, they could tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like the bagging is one thing that a lot of folks haven't tapped into, and there's not as much competition in, because it's labor heavy. I mean, like I have a lot of hours. I pay well to the high school kids, and I want them to be excited about coming and feel like they're part of the project and such. So I feel like the labor heavy part is probably a downside to the bagging for most of the local guys. Takes time.
I agree. Yeah, it does. As opposed to just like throwing a cord in a trailer or back of a truck or whatever, and that's, I guess, less touching than having to put it in a jig or with your sled in the bag, or having to bundle it, whatever. But that's why you can charge $5, $7 per bag per bundle, and feel good about that. Not that you're having to overcharge your customers. Like,
yeah,
find that sweet spot, because it is labor intensive. So
yeah, and everybody makes money. I feel like in the sense of the bags, it's like it allows my employees to have like an extra 5-10 hours a week in there, and then who knows what it's going to turn into in the summertime for delivering and moving stuff around and all of that. But yeah, I think that I'm happy with it. I enjoy working with like a team or a crew. And so we just got together one weekend and we bagged a whole semi truckload in one weekend. I can't remember. Let's see, there was 4 guys. Oh, 40. It was like 50 or 48 hours worth of, man hours, labor hours to do the whole semi, but that's me included in that. So I feel like that's pretty fair, but most people would scoff at that. Like managing a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-olds putting bags and firewood into bags has its own problems that could arise if you let it. So yeah, it's just, that's the market that I want to be in right now, because there is a heavy saturation of bulk wood, cord and face cord deliveries. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, you have done your research and know your area enough to find something that is niche, and so far so good. So
yeah, we're trying it out. I haven't, we haven't really, I'm not an expert in it locally or anything, but I just see the potential, and I'm going to try it out. We're going to try it out this year, and maybe we'll do a follow-up next year. We can talk about it again and see what I learned,
Exactly. It's good to have to like learn from doing, because each area is different. wood's different. How you sell it, it may differ too. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Let's segue again. In your opinion, what is the best type of wood to burn and why? And then follow up with that would be the worst type of wood to burn and why.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about heating, just heat value, and not the campfire stuff that I just rambled on about for 20 minutes. The I would say I like seasoned red oak. If it's been sitting out in the sun with the airflow through it uh for 3 years, red oak is my favorite. Hickory is really close up there. Like we get a lot of hickory with the axe handle thing, so I burn hickory a decent amount, and it has great heat value, especially when it's air dried. And then yeah, obviously pine's terrible. In our outdoor boiler, it's terrible. It burns super fast. Like you fill the boiler with pine and like 3 hours later it's like, oh, you got to put more wood in. And then obviously the elephant in the room would be the creosote that is released from the pine,
Hmm.
more than the oak. So yeah, I would say pine would be my least favorite to burn.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I have burned pine before in my house, or burned it and then sold it. Not my favorite wood, but when it's free, it's free, I
Yeah,
guess.
and it crackles and pops and makes the romantic sound that a campfire makes, or a fireplace makes. So if you're looking for the ambiance of of a campfire, you can put pine in there and it sounds cool.
I agree with you, and I get, and here people know that with cedar too,
Mm,
and they want that as well. But I had one guy, I think it was a few months ago, he was out, he wanted to buy campfire wood, but he didn't want cedar or didn't want pine specifically because he didn't want that distract packer pop.
yeah,
So I was kind of puzzled by it, like, why would you not want that? But I think I forget the story. Maybe he had dogs or young kids that he didn't want to scare them, or I
yeah.
don't know. But I guess it's good to have people know enough about firewood to know what they want and to tell me,
Hmm.
as opposed to like to get the wood like, well, I don't. What am I
Disappointed.
burning?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they're
disappointed.
disappointed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Gotcha. You mentioned this, but I wanted to confirm. In your area, what do you call a third of a cord?
yeah, face cord. Yeah, I mean, in my area, they call it a bazillion different things. It feels like, but I call it a face cord. I grew up calling it a face cord. It's pretty standard, right? It's three face cords makes up a full cord. But I as I've gotten into this locally, there's everybody's calling it a rick and a whatever. It's just, I don't know, a truckload. Everyone thinks that they can fit a full cord in the back of their truck. We've got a couple local firewood producers that market full cords. It's a full cord for $90, and it's like there's no way that that's happening. So I feel like yeah, I call it a full cord and a face cord, and I think we will probably put up a sign if we ever do, and we'll be trying to educate our customers. That's the most important thing, I think, with all of this, is educating your customers on what your terminology is. It doesn't matter what the next guy's terminology is. It's like setting the expectation is like, for this price, this is the amount of firewood you're going to get.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be on a common plane with your customers and educate them for sure. I think that they appreciate that. I mean,
Hmm.
not to have them be experts, but to have them have enough knowledge where they feel confident in buying from you,
Yeah.
and they're getting quality wood and they're getting what they paid for,
Yeah,
you
it's the
know?
same thing with the axe handles with the cracks and the knots and stuff. Like I want a expectation is like, what is a B grade handle? What is an A grade handle? I need the customer to know that as good as I do. So that way there's no issues with people being like, wow, this is junk. And it works with every industry. Just being clear and concise with your standards and your expectations are good for your customer.
I agree. I agree. Let's move on to the next question here. Do you have experience with a gas or electric splitter, and what is your preference?
Oh, I don't have experience with an electric splitter. I would love to see an indoor. I would love to put one in my shop at my house, indoor firewood processor that's all electric. We've got three phase there, so it'd be like sweet it'd be quiet. I don't even know if anybody makes a electric. Easton made, I think, just released an electric version of or a prototype, or did something on their page. But So I don't have any experience with small stuff that's electric, but the gas splitters that I've ran have just been the single wedge stuff, basic stuff like that. I've rented a processor before, Dyna, yellow and blue
Yeah.
ones. Yep. And 16, Dyna 16, I think it was. And then I've my buddy John brought over his Halverson 140B, which is attached to the front of a skid steer, which is great for pulpwood, like we're buying. So I guess that's gas powered or diesel powered because it's ran off the skid loader. But that's my experience with those.
But you prefer using your axe, I assume.
I mean, I actually, for volume, I really prefer some sort of mechanical advantage, but as far as for inside my house, I do like coming back to that health thing. I just like splitting with an axe and testing our product. We sell axes, so I do enjoy just using our own product and all of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So next question, because you're selling wood, do you use a moisture meter, or do you just go by time, or do you bang the pieces? What do you do?
Yeah, well, with the aspen, it dries out so fast that I don't really need to worry about moisture. I have a moisture meter that actually some company on TikTok sent me. It's here. I haven't tested it yet. I don't even know the brand. I'm going to start using it on the ash and the oak that we split for our house. I have obviously when you burn indoors, you want to make sure you're burning wood that's been seasoned. It burns better and it's safer. So I want to start testing it throughout the summer, splitting open a piece and testing the inside, and kind of keeping an eye on it to make sure that it's actually seasoned for our indoor wood stove. But yeah, I've heard of the bang it together trick for the sound, but I've never used it. Just never been. I usually just try to let the stuff sit so long that it's it's so dry that it doesn't matter. And that's how my grandparents always did it when I was growing up. They've always got 4 or 5 years worth of wood, so it's easy to
Wow.
always have it dry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when you are processing wood, are you going to be putting in a pile or stacking it, or what do you do? And then is it covered?
Yeah. So I think that all of those. I pile it. Especially for when we're bagging, it's just in a pile and then we work off the pile. We've got a table that we move closer to the pile as we pull off the pile, and you kind of just move through the pile. That's short term, right? So that's just like it gets split, it sits for a month, then we put it in bags, and then it sits in bags. The boiler we have issues with. We want to store the big stuff outside, and it snows just a lot of snow here happens here. So we got 155 inches last year. So that's a lot of snow to be sitting on top of firewood. So we're going to have to find out a different way. I might buy those like recycled billboard tarps, and tarp it next year. Our big pile. I don't stack much. I do stack indoors. If I know it's wet and I want it to dry out in the heated shop over the winter, I'll stack it indoors, like up against the wall. The goal eventually is to have like a wood yard that's not at my house, so that there's not just equipment running around and all of that. And if I have a wood yard, I will plan on stacking oak and actually completely seasoning oak. A lot of folks locally don't actually season it. They split it in April and then they sell it in November and say, hey, it's been sitting on the ground for a year because it's been a log, and then it's been split for maybe 12 months. And I'm actually looking to actually season it and do oak that way, let it sit for 2-3 years and let it dry out. So I'll be stacking it for that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned the billboard tarps. I got into them a year or so ago, and so far so good. I like to reuse or recycle things when I can, and that is a good way. They're cheap enough, especially if you find them on sale, but really what you're paying for when you get them, you're paying for shipping because they're so damn heavy. But I do like
Are they large?
I mean, you can get them in any size.
Okay. Yeah. I
Really.
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. The company there's like several companies out there, but like the two main ones, you just go to their site and they'll have like different sizes. And I like to buy a little bit bigger than what I need. I can always cut it. In theory, you can't if it's too small, then it's not going to work for
Right.
your shed, your trailer, or whatever you're using it for.
Hmm.
Um, but I do like them. There's definitely a 9-day difference between those and the old school like blue
Blue
tarps. I
tarp.
mean, those
Yeah,
are
yeah,
just
yeah.
not going to cut it anymore. No.
Yeah, it's like with firewood, it's just the firewood, you drag it off, the firewood just beats up on that, and with the blue tarps. So yeah, I'm looking to get at least one or two of those to tarp our stuff next year, and then be able to keep keep the snow off the firewood for the boiler outside. But all of our indoor wood gets stacked inside of our garage. We've got enough space for about 4 cords. We just take up a space that you would normally put your car. That's just all
Hmm.
firewood in the garage, and so
Hmm.
that all gets stored inside. I hope to put stuff in there. I hope to have it all in there by September, so it sits outside in the sun and dries out, and then in September we just have the high schoolers just throw a bunch of wood in the garage. So yeah.
Yeah. I I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. Maybe you mentioned before and I missed it. For your bagged wood, you're putting in a pile and then going from the pile into bags. But is the wood already seasoned or is it seasoning while in the bags?
A little, I would say a little both.
Okay.
So we this last time we had the logs, they were sitting, it was in the winter, so they're not seasoning because they're frozen. And
Hmm.
then when it started warming up and drying out, or like the sun was out and the snow was melting, that's when we split it. And then it sat on the ground for 5 weeks like that in the sun, direct sun, no trees around it, just in a basically an open section. And then we put it in bags. I haven't seen them shrink inside the bags too much. So yeah, and then all the bags went inside of our building, which is heated. So it's a constant 68 degrees in there. So I'm assuming that they would they're just seasoning in there. But with aspen, I don't know if you're familiar with aspen, but like
Not really.
after, yeah, you can like light it with a lighter. Like you
Oh
can like
wow.
light, yeah. So after about like right now, I burn it in my indoor as like I put, when I light it the stove and try to get it going in the morning, I throw an aspen log on top of the coals, and then I put the ash or oak around it, and it lights up fast. So it's seasoned in my opinion and ready to go, especially because it's campfire wood for us.
Yeah. And so I think you're doing a version of kiln dried wood being because your warehouse is, like you said, it's always heated or
Yeah.
warm. And it would be concerning if you were bundling the wood not fully seasoned and you're using a wrap. But because you're using a bag, you may have
Hmm.
shrinkage, but there's still airflow for them to still dry out or to
Yeah.
still maintain being dry
Yep.
and being in the bags. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, and having it be indoors, it will maintain it being dry, not have to go from, if it's going to be in the bag and then seasoned but then it's outside, you don't sell it. It
Hmm.
may get some more moisture inside, perhaps maybe
Yeah.
not enough to be wet, but you to maintain quality, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. I
Yeah, and
gotcha. I
the,
gotcha.
the bags, the bags don't really like UV light. Those red mesh bags, the
Hmm.
onion bags or whatever, they
Yep.
don't like UV light, and they fall apart after they've been sitting outside for 2-3 months. So I just focus on like putting them inside, so that they're out of the sun. And we've split up some ash before, and brought in, like, I'd say like an IBC tote worth of ash, and you can see it every day. You look at it, and it's drying out, like it's cracking on the end, and you can see it drying. So just being in that 68-degree dry heat, it in the winter, it definitely dries wood. It's not kiln dried, but it's definitely drying it out, where instead it would be outside and just frozen and not doing anything.
I hear you. I hear you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Let's segue again. In your chainsaws, are you running ethanol free? Are you running premium or regular gas?
Yeah, I run premium. They sell 91 octane ethanol free at the like local gas station. That's what I run in all of my saws. Yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha. It's interesting just to hear what people run and have access to in
Yeah.
their in
Yeah.
their in the
Ethanol's
area.
huge. Ethanol's huge in this area. You get cornfields in Wisconsin, and subsidized. So it's hard to avoid. But most of the premium in this area, because we have motorsports for the tourists, like trail riding and snowmobiling and all of that, there's always an ethanol free option. So I don't like ethanol in my chainsaws.
I hear you. I hear you. Is it premium versus regular, or the ethanol free versus regular? Is that a big price difference in your area
It's usually
per gallon?
a dollar more per gallon to get the premium ethanol free stuff.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like it's a dollar. I'm not gonna. It's just a dollar. It's not much. I'm only filling up 5 gallons at a time, and 5 gallons lasts me like half the summer. It seems like I'm not going through chainsaw gas as much as I, go through anything else with gas. So it works out.
And it saves you a headache. With the saw not starting for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I like letting
Yeah.
my saws sit. Like sometimes I got 4 saws, and I don't use all 4 every week. So with the ethanol, you just don't want to let ethanol fuel sit in your saw. So I want to be able to leave my saw sit there for 6 months and not ever run it, one of my saws, and then start it up. So having the premium ethanol free in there really, really helps with that.
It's a peace of mind aspect too.
Yeah.
I hear you. On that note, when you are storing your saws, how are you storing them? Is the gas tank full? Is it half empty? Or is it all empty? Or how do you store them?
Yeah, they're stored inside, obviously, and just on a table in the workshop. There's just like a saw table that we just put all the saw stuff on. I don't focus on keeping them full. I just keep them with whatever gas is in them. Often, I mean, a lot of times they're empty, because it's like, all right, the saw ran out of gas, and that's the end of the day, right? It's like, all right, we're
Yep.
done.
There you go.
Yeah, and I set it in there, and it's stored empty, which has its advantages. I actually prefer to store them empty if I have a choice, but I'm not particular about it in any way.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let's get into what is your go-to saw right now? One that to grab on the shelf for any cutting
Yeah.
job. What do you go to?
Yeah. Oh man, it's hard. I have a 346 XP, which is a small, pro series, I guess, 18-inch bar saw. I really like it because it's just like you can toss it anywhere, and it's like I can put it in the skid loader with me, like on my feet, by my feet. So that's always my go-to if I'm cutting firewood. Obviously, I'm not felling big trees with it or anything, but just it's a nice user saw. Doesn't wear you out. So that's probably my go-to, but I have a couple other that I grab if I'm looking for bigger stuff. So yeah.
Are you a brand loyal guy, or are your saws kind of mixed
No,
bag?
yeah, no way. No way. I've never been a brand loyal guy with anything. I especially trucks and tractors and stuff growing up with agriculture. It's just, I like whatever works. Every single one's going to have its problems in its own way. But I just like, I have that Husky. That's that small one. I've got a steel 461, with a 28-inch bar on it that I use for bigger stuff. And then, I just recently Appalachian Appalachian Saw. And, oh God, he's gonna hate me for butchering his name. I can't remember his business name, but anyway, he's on TikTok. He's doing he ported and did an exhaust and tuned my 262 XP Husky, which has got a 20-inch bar on it. I'm really excited about running that saw. I get it back this week, and it's coming in the mail. So yeah, I just like using whatever I've got. Really, it's like a lot of people focus like, oh man, you got to have this. It's like the best chainsaw you have is the one that you own and it's paid off, and like you own it outright, and just if it has gas in it and it can cut wood and it's got a sharp chain, I'll run a Poulon Wild Thing if it's sitting in front of me and that's the only saw to run. I don't care. So
Amen. I agree.
yeah.
Whatever is in your hands running is
making you money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. It does not need to be the latest greatest saw. Whatever's sharp and maintained and running.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I mean, look at any of these tree services. I worked on a tree service for 2 years. Like, look at any of these tree services. They're not running hopped up chainsaws. They're not running fancy stuff. They're running stuff that they don't feel bad about dropping out of the bucket if it falls off the bucket truck, or sitting down into the dirt if it needs to be. So that's where I focus, is just user saws, and that's how I am about axes and trucks and everything else. So
Gotcha. I agree with
yeah.
you. When you are on a log and you're bucking, what are you using to measure either a 16 or 18, or is that not what you do at all when you're cutting?
Oh man, I don't really process too much with a saw and then a splitter. I'm gonna be probably getting a vertical splitter soon, and so I will be bucking. My plan was to just have a mark on the bar of that 461 that's got a 16 or 18-inch mark on it, and I'll just sideways eyeball it, and especially with the bag stuff, like we're not too worried about exact length, because the customer's never going to see it stacked perfectly like they would in their woodshed at their house when you deliver. So yeah, that's the only way I'm going to measure, probably, is just based on the bar.
Gotcha. I think that's a safe, easy way to do it, and something that's common and it's cheap. Not have to buy
Yeah,
something else, some other tool or whatever.
definitely.
It may take more time to go from here to here to kind of switch it around, but it's your yard, your wood. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Definitely.
yeah, yeah, rock and roll. So it's now to the point in the interview, folks, and Brandon, that I give my interviewee the floor to share what they want to share, pro tips, lessons learned, anything about firewood that they want to share with the firewood community, because here on the channel and this podcast, we're about sharing information. So Brandon, the floor is yours, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so I think that like part of it, he was like, pro tip. I'm not a professional in this industry yet, per se, or I don't want to call myself that. But one thing that as I've been looking at firewood processors to purchase or to rent or to whatever, and I was talking to Bob at Wolf Ridge about this. It's like there's no one on social media that has a channel or has been putting out any content that is, to my knowledge, that has tested a bunch of splitters and a bunch of processors and a bunch of things that, from all different brands, Chinese made stuff, stuff from Finland, stuff from Japan, American made stuff, and have been able to share an authentic, true opinion on this versus this. And that's super hard, because what happens with that is similar to what we just talked about with brand loyalty. Is when a guy buys a brand new Dodge Ram for, what are they now, 90 grand, he digs his heels in and says that's the best truck, I'd never buy another truck. Well, why is it the best truck? Well, it's because it's a truck that he would never want to admit that he might have bought for $90,000 and he doesn't like it. And with the processors and the firewood splitters, oftentimes you see these guys, they're like, I don't want to say, I guess they're like schlepping a brand. And it's like, well, why do you like that brand? Well, it's because it's what I have. It's what I bought. Well, like, are there advantages to other brands? And obviously in this industry, and honestly, every industry, there's different tools for different jobs. So what works for you might not work for someone else. And that becomes a problem when you're looking at processors, big ticket items. Like they're super expensive. Like you can't just, you're not no one in this world that I know personally is impulsively spending 100 grand on a processor, like, if anyone out there wants to send me one for free just because they impulsively bought one, let me know. But it's like, so what you have is this idea is like, well, it has value, it's the best because I bought it and it was expensive. And I wish that there was more content out there, and I hope to build more content on, like, renting some machines. I don't need to buy these things, just rent them, and get them in, process a half a truck or a full truck on it, and see its advantages, and what it has as disadvantages to it, when it comes to how I use a tool for bagging and maybe into bulk sales later. So that's something that in the industry I'm kind of like, there's a void there. Obviously, it takes a bunch of money to try to get a bunch of processors in, or it takes a bunch of contacts, I guess, that have processors. But that's just something that I would like to move into as we build a log yard and build content around firewood processing and such, which I'm super excited about because I love working with equipment and playing around with the toys, I guess, if you will, when it comes to that stuff. So yeah.
Interesting concept. I definitely agree with you. I can't think of a channel or an outlet that has what you are speaking about. And I
Yeah.
do feel that there is value. I mean, I think there is channels that they get sponsored or they get donated a processor or a splitter, and that's what they're using because that's what they were given.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like, which is
They're loyal to
awesome.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, they get this free equipment to
Yeah.
use,
Yeah.
right, for their wood yard.
Yeah.
But then there's the ones that has spent their own hard-earned money and they love it. At least on their channel, they love it.
Yeah.
But they spent like $10,000 plus on the splitter, and of course they're gonna love it because that's a lot of money for
Yeah.
someone to spend um on a new on a new unit. And
Hmm.
and you do have channels that have different brands and they're using type thing, and that's interesting too, to see a different companies on one channel. And yes, the equipment is they're being used different ways. I don't think you would have
Yeah.
the same splitter, same processor, different brands side by side at the same time. I think what you're talking about would be interesting. Definitely, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, a lot of money involved or contacts to
Hmm.
do that. That would be cool to see.
Yeah.
And from when I mean, I have an opinion on certain splitters and certain brands just from watching them on YouTube, but that's different from hands-on in the yard using the
Hmm.
machine. There's
Yeah.
obviously a whole more variables than theirs, but yeah,
Yeah, I
huh,
agree. I think that the you know, back 40's got a Easton made and a Wolf Ridge, so it's like, but he's using those two different tools for two different things, like, so
exactly.
there, that's like the closest that I've seen of someone who is possibly, showing the advantages to two different. He's not coming out and being like, this is the advantage, but these are I'm comparing these two side by side, and like time and all that. And that's not what I want to do. I want to be like, hey, like this is the reason why I like this splitter, and this is the reason why I don't like this splitter. And this is the reason why this splitter makes my life easier in this aspect, and this is why this makes it easier in this aspect. So they're all different. They're all, they're all similar. They all make firewood, right? At the end of the day, they all
Hmm.
make firewood, but it's like, working through how to make firewood in a specific way for bagging or for sauna wood or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited to hopefully build some content on that. It's going to be a 5-10 year process probably to get that going, but I'm okay with that. And I'm starting with this. I've done the Halverson. I put a cone splitter on my truck and split some firewood with my pickup truck, and then I've rented that. I didn't make any content around that Dyna, but but I did, I have done a bunch of hand splitting and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to move around the splitters and try to get my hands on as many as I can, try them out. So
Yeah. And I think I contact like Bob Nelson. He would have the ability or to support that somehow,
mhm.
that kind of mission or the
Yeah, I can't
foresight,
imagine
right?
that. As a retailer myself, as someone who works with influencers and stuff for Whiskey River, I'm like, I can't imagine that any company would be opposed to the idea. Any marketing agent for a company would be like, yeah, well, let's. It would be cool to see it compared to other ones, and an honest, true review, not just like, hey, this company's paying me to tell you this script, and if I go off the script, they're going to be mad, but like actually using the tool to make firewood and make videos on it, and
Hmm.
share it with folks so that you could see, like, hey, I could see the advantages to that in my log yard, and it helps sell units. So yeah, I'm excited to hopefully go down that road here in the next couple of years.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
Anything else that you want to share with us before we sign off?
I think that's it. I think that's
Okay.
I enjoyed my time talking firewood. This is super fun.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
nice to find someone that you can chat with. Obviously, you can chat like forever, but not everyone wants to talk about firewood. So if you
No,
want to talk about
no.
firewood,
Yeah.
like a layperson, like they're like, why are you
Yeah.
mentioning firewood to me? Like I don't want to talk about firewood.
Yeah, exactly.
So to find someone that you can connect with, like
Yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
definitely. I enjoyed my time.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being on.
Yeah.
So I'll let you sign off, and then let's show us share with us your channel and your socials and your website, please.
Yeah, so I'll start with website first, whiskeyrivertrading.com. If we're sold out of a product, it's super easy to go on that product on the website, click the notify me when available button, put your email in, we email you automatically. We sell out a lot, especially on our axe handles. Like we get them in, we manage them in drops. So we get a crate in, we put them on the website and they sell out, and then we get another crate in. So if you go to our website, because I'm plugging it right now, and you're like, wow, the handle I want is sold out, just wait. Our newsletter, our email newsletter subscribers get first dibs. You can go into the search bar on the website and just type in email newsletter. It'll pop up, type it in. But we're on, for socials, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, as Whiskey River Trading Co. on all of them, I believe. So you can hit us up in DMs on all of those. I'm the one who replies to the DMs on those. TikTok's the one that I've been putting a bunch of effort into lately. It's been great to be able to put a little bit more personal content out on Firewood, and you know, a little more humor than Facebook allows. So TikTok's where you get the most authentic version, and then YouTube we're working on long forms. We have a plan this summer to do one long form video every week from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Cool. Well, thank you, sir, for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. If you all want to be on the podcast too, go to email me. I now have stickers. I have stickers both for the channel logo and for the podcast logo here. They're available. If you wanted to get some of those, go ahead and go on my Buy Me a Coffee account for some stickers. And if you have any more ideas for questions for the folks I interview, let me know too, folks. I want to make sure that this is more of a flowing organic conversation, but you have to have some content to ask people who are on the podcast. So thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe, rock and roll, keep cutting. Cheers.
See you guys.